From eavesdropping on a private conversation to stealing the exam answers from a lecturer's office. When might an obligation of confidence be imposed on a person who obtains information surreptitiously? Surreptitious means any illegal, improper, or unconscionable act perpetrated by the defendant. Before we delve into this further, let's first consider the doctrine of confidence generally. The doctrine of confidence exists in equity. It seeks to bind the conscience of a person who receives confidential information. For this obligation to be imposed, there must be information that has the quality of relative secrecy, imparted in a way where a person would expect that information was given in confidence, and finally, actual or threatened misuse of the information. However, with surreptitiously obtained information, there is no disclosure of the information to which the obligation can normally attach. Nonetheless, a person who acquires information surreptitiously is treated as being subject to an obligation of confidence. This obligation is imposed on the basis of the doctrine of unconscionability. That is, it would be unconscionable or unfair for a person who has received information via surreptitious means to reap the benefits from that information. So, when may an obligation be imposed upon a person who obtains information surreptitiously? Firstly, there must be reasonable precautions in place to prevent the information from being obtained. This can include such precautions as a physical barrier, written instructions, oral instructions, and selective admittance. Let's first consider the case of Franklin and Giddens, 1978. An obligation of confidence was imposed on a farmer who had stolen nectarine budwoods, whose genetic makeup was secret. The court found that the farmer had acted unconscionably by attempting to better their business through a wrongful act. Another example derives from the case Douglas and Hallow, 2005. In this case, Douglas had reached an agreement to commercialize the photos from a wedding that was deemed to have a nature of confidence. A photographer who gatecrashed the wedding surreptitiously obtained photos. The courts ultimately imposed an obligation of confidence on the surreptitious gatecrasher. Now that we have an understanding of when an obligation may be imposed, let's consider a few hypothetical scenarios. Scenario 1. Would a student who breaks into a lecturer's office to obtain a copy of the exam exemplar have an obligation of confidence imposed upon them? Well, yes. The information here is arguably confidential and was obtained via reprehensible means for the student's own benefit. Now let's consider scenario 2. What about a student who is standing in an elevator as two lecturers are discussing the answer to their assignment? This scenario is less clear. While the information may be confidential, the lecturers have failed to employ reasonable precautions to prevent the information from being obtained. The student also hasn't explicitly acted surreptitiously in obtaining the vital information. What are your thoughts on this scenario? Please share them below. So, what have we learnt today? An obligation of confidence will be imposed upon a person who obtains confidential information via surreptitious means. Thank you for your time.